Hey, everybody, welcome to the Colorado High Country podcast, where we talk all things real estate here in the Colorado High Country, and we try to bring you a different perspective than maybe you normally might get. And I'm Dave Metzler, I'm your host, and let's get this thing kicked off.
Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado.
All right. Okay. So we've got a great guest lined up for you today. I've got Carrie George lined up, who is a realtor from Keller Williams in Grand County, in Kremmling more specifically. And Carrie is a great source of knowledge. Let's go ahead and bring her in.
Hey,
There
Dave.
she is. Hi, Carrie. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. We're gonna talk all kinds of cool stuff today and give our listeners some insight to some things that they probably don't normally get. You're a great source, Carrie. I was looking at your bio. I didn't realize you were a fifth generation Coloradan.
Yes, it's kind of rare to be native to Colorado, but yeah, fifth generation.
Wow. So do you know the story of how your people came to Colorado?
I know a little bit of it. I had some relatives who had a general store in Leadville during the mining rush up there. And then when that kind of quieted down, they ended up moving to the Denver area. And that's where I grew up, was in Denver.
Okay. So, how long have you actually been in the Kremmling area?
Let's see, my family moved here in 1995, and then I lived abroad for a while. And then when I came home and didn't know what I was going to do, I thought, well, I'll just park here in Kremmling for a little bit, and then I'll
Right.
be off on my next adventure. And that was in 2000, and I
Okay.
never left because I met my
Okay.
husband here, and we have two daughters, and our life is here, and we just absolutely love it.
That's great. Yeah, I wanted to bring up your husband, Bill, a little bit later, but I know Bill he kind of does like ranch and land sales, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Yeah.
So, since we're on the subject, I know Grand County has a lot of, open space. It's kind of a wide open county. Let's talk for a second about the land and ranch for just a second. Is there, a lot of land and ranches available for sale, and how does a sale of land kind of differ from a typical real estate sale?
Sure. So we do have quite a bit of land for sale in Grand County, and then we have a few large parcels. But for someone who's looking for a piece of land to build a mountain home on, we've got everything from maybe $50,000 up to over $1 million. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for and the size. So yeah, we've got a bunch of different options available. It's funny because I have lots of agents say to me, they're like, "Oh, I could never sell land. It's so complicated." It's actually way easier than selling a house because there's very little to inspect. So as
Right, right.
it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, right.
here it is. So we get it surveyed. Of course, that's a really important aspect because you want to know what it is that you're buying. And then other than the survey, there's only a couple other inspections that you do on vacant land, and that would be like a soils test and what they used to call a perk test to find out what kind of septic system you're going to need. But if you've got
Okay.
taps, you don't even have to worry about that. So there's not
What
a lot
about is there water right issues that come into play when you're buying land?
on large parcels for sure there are, but like the kind of clients that I help that are buying anywhere from 1 to 100 acres, those are properties that will all be serviced probably by a well of some sort. So that's you apply for a permit through the Division of Water Resources, and then
Okay.
depending on how much land you have, you can either do a household use only well, or if you have 35 acres or more, you can do what's called a domestic well, which allows you a few more uses than just household.
What about if there's like a creek or something or a lake on that property?
So just because you have a creek running through your property or some sort of body of water on your property, that doesn't necessarily mean you own the rights to that water. In most cases, you actually don't. So even things like, for instance, up on the Gore, we have lots of 5-acre parcels where a couple creeks were run through that subdivision. And people are like, oh, great, I'll have horses and they can water out of that creek. Well, they don't own that water. It flows through your property, but it is owned by somebody else.
So then how does that come into play? Can you use the water for irrigation, for horses drinking? Can you use it for anything?
Not technically. I mean, it's really just there for the aesthetic value because in Colorado, and it's funny, people from out of state, when I tell them all these rules we have around water, they don't believe me, I think. They think how can it be this restrictive? But in Colorado, we're such a dry state that water is like gold. So we have very specific rules and regulations surrounding water. And like I said, if you have a creek running through your property, that water is owned by somebody downstream from you, probably a large ranch.
Wow. So all that would come out obviously when you're purchasing the land, all that
Yeah.
legal stuff with the water and all that's going to come out, right?
Likely
You
in
don't
the,
want anyone getting surprised by anything.
yeah. And most agents that are experienced in selling mountain land, they already know up front, like, hey, that creek runs through your property, but you don't own a single drop of it. So go down there, listen to it, enjoy it. You can fish in it, you can get in it, but in terms of diverting water or using that water, it's, I mean, a 99% chance that they don't have the right to do that.
Wow, interesting. Okay. Well, that's good info. I mean, I didn't really know that, and I'm sure a lot of people don't understand, and I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yes.
But we won't get into it today. That's
Sure.
probably a whole other
Yeah.
podcast topic here. Um, so you're in Kremmling, which is like West Grand County,
Yes.
and do you sort of focus on Western Grand County, or do you focus on the entire county?
I really do the entire county. I'd say probably 50% or more of my business is in the Kremmling area or this western side of the county. But I've got quite a few clients and listings that are in the Granby, Grand Lake area, Hot Sulphur, a little bit into the east side of the county, Fraser, Tabernash, and Winter Park. But
Okay.
I'll really sell anywhere in the county. I really like to stay hyper local because I feel like in order to do the best job for both my buyers and sellers, I really need to know what I'm talking about. So every once in a while, I'll venture into Summit County, but it's kind of rare. I really like to stay in Grand County because I know it very well.
Yeah. And speaking of knowing Grand County real estate really well, you've been on the board of realtors. I believe you still are,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
What's your role there?
So I'm just a member at large right now. I was board president in 22 and then
Okay.
past president in 23.
Okay. And so like what's your role right now? Like what's your main function, I should say, that you do as a director at large?
Sure. So as a board of directors, we give direction to our executive, and she's the one who basically implements, rules, regulations, new things that we're bringing on board, community events that we do, following our bylaws. We have the National Association of Realtors above us, and they have certain things that we need to accomplish every year. So she basically keeps the entire board running. The MLS is part of that. But we have a lot of functions as a board as well, serving our members.
Okay. Okay. How many years have you been doing that for, Carrie?
So I've actually been on the board 2 different times. So before my oldest daughter was born, and she's almost 14, I served on that board. And then I took a little bit of a break when she was a baby, and then when my second daughter came along. And then I've been back on this board. I think I'm like, well, it was before COVID. So yeah, like 5 or 6 years I've been on this board, and we have a really good group, and we're really getting a lot done and just really doing a lot of community outreach, which has been awesome.
That's great. And so you just hit on that. I wanted to ask you about community outreach and stuff. What type of stuff does the Grand County Board do, or do you do for community outreach? Can you go into that just a little bit?
So, we help a lot of our existing nonprofits that are in the county kind of help supplement them. So, for instance, Grand Foundation, Mountain Family Center, like we'll do, we'll do a food drive. Like each office will work individually to, raise or have food deliveries, brought to their office. And then we, as a group, we have a huge donation that we give over to Mountain Family Center. We help the Grand Foundation with any fundraising that they do. Um, After the Troublesome fire, we were very, very active in helping not only our members who had lost homes, there was quite a few of them, but just the community at large, how we could support them through that very difficult time. Let's see, what else do we do? Oh, Habitat for Humanity. I mean, we kind of have our fingers in a lot of different things that are related to real estate.
Yeah, and I know the Family Resource Center. I know my company. We've helped donate to
Yeah,
your cause before, and are they their what's their main function?
they're our county food bank.
Okay, that's what
Yeah,
I
so
thought.
yeah, and they also help with other things like utilities, some rent. They're really there as just like a safety net for families for basic needs.
Okay. So let's switch gears just a little bit, Carrie. I want to talk about, you mentioned the fire a couple years. I'm sorry, what was the fire called again?
The Troublesome fire, and that
The
was
Troublesome Fire.
yeah,
That's right.
October of 2020.
Yeah, that was like during COVID time, I
Yes.
remember.
Yep.
And afterwards, after that fire, I remember personally, I was looking at land real estate in the area, and I was looking for burned land that I thought maybe would be discounted and you could get a good deal on the land. But what I found was nothing was really being discounted at that time. Um, do you have any insight as to why? I mean, we're talking about burned, charred land. Is it
Mhm.
just because that the land's going to revegetate in a few years, or why do you suppose prices didn't necessarily drop on burned land?
I think that what I've seen, so we're now 4 years post fire, in some of our hardest hit areas, we're seeing like aspen groves totally coming back. I mean, they're still small trees and they're still pretty spindly, but they're probably 8 feet tall. And so in 4 years, we've had that much regrowth. The
Yeah.
county and the federal government did an amazing job of reseeding in some of the places that were really very susceptible to landslides. So I feel like as a whole, we had a lot of hands on deck to try and do the best we could to help the land regenerate as fast as it could.
So what's the status now on that fire area? Are you seeing buyers come back to that area, or I mean, you just mentioned that everything's kind of starting to regrow and all that, but what's your take on the way it is with the current status of it?
I was just up in Grand Lake this weekend, and I mean, you can still see the charred out trees, but there's so much regrowth happening. It's almost like I'm sure it's still very fresh in some people's minds. There's still people who are finishing their new construction homes, homes that they lost in the fire that they had to rebuild. But,
Hmm.
it just feels kind of like things did such a good job coming back that I just really haven't seen, a big discount in price. Not to mention, you're talking about like we're at the heart of the Rocky Mountains. This is a place people want to be. And
Right.
your thought like, well, maybe I can get a nice deal on something. But yeah, I think it was the properties held their value quite well, even through that traumatic experience.
Yeah. And the community, you would say everything's sort of kind of fully back to normal after that disaster?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I have had friends and colleagues who did lose their homes,
Mhm.
but they have rebuilt those homes and are rebuilding their lives. And yeah, I think it's an unfortunate thing, but a lot of people would tell you here in the mountains with all of those beetle kill trees that died, 20 years ago, it wasn't really a matter of if, it was just a matter of when. And we had our when in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. With all the beetle kill, I did a podcast episode last week where I talked with a guy from Eagle County who does wildfire, um, I don't know, preparedness, I guess. And I know in Grand County, there are just entire hillsides where you'll see dead beetle kill of the pine trees and things like that. So we had the one fire 4 years ago Do you have any insight as to what local authorities are saying is there still a pretty high risk in Grand County for another fire?
I mean, I think there is, let's see, south of here towards Summit County, that whole Williams Fork area, there's a lot of dead trees up there as well. So yeah, I would say that the fire definitely woke us all up because, again, I think people feel a little complacent. They feel like, oh, well, it won't be on my watch. I won't see a fire happen when I live here.
Right.
I think one of the hardest things for people to kind of wrap their heads around were the people who were underinsured. So that was really heartbreaking for a lot of people because they weren't able to rebuild the home that they lost. So
So
that's
what about insurance? Can people get insured now in that area or in Grand County in general? Is it hard to get insurance?
it can be hard to get insurance depending on where your home is and your closest fire department. So um, prices have definitely gone way, way up.
Yeah.
That's been hard for people. When I
Yeah.
saw our property taxes shoot up like they did, and I knew insurance prices were also going to shoot up like they did, I just really felt there was going to be people who those two items were going to push them over the edge and they would no longer be able to afford their homes. And I have seen
Yeah.
a couple of people who've been in that situation.
Yeah. Are you also seeing cases where insurance companies don't want to insure like a wood shake roof and things like that? Are you seeing that at all?
More so, it's the location of the home. So, something that's way, way, way up down some long, winding county road, very far from a fire station. They want either they don't insure at all or they just want so much money that it becomes cost prohibitive. And as you probably know, we have in the real estate contract a date and deadline for property insurance because it's become, even before this fire, it's become an issue. Buyers think like, oh, it won't be a big deal to get homeowners insurance. And then they go start shopping around and they're
Right.
pretty shocked.
Yeah.
So
There
yeah,
definitely can be surprises for
yes,
sure when it comes to that.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about Grand County a little bit. This is your specialty area. First of all, what is it that draws you to Grand County and what do you love about it so much?
Well, I'd say probably the natural beauty, the lack of crowds for the most part, and the great people that we have here. It's just um, in a lot of resort communities, as you know, we do have this sort of transient population where people kind of say, like, oh, I want to go work at a ski resort for a year. And they come and try it. And the winners maybe make them feel like that wasn't the best choice or housing is always a little hard to come by too in that regard.
Mhm.
I feel like Grand County has a little bit less of that sort of transient population, especially in Kremmling. So like when people move here, they're usually here for several years. They're getting their kids through school. They're kind of dedicated to staying here and kind of seeing it through. So you get to just meet a ton of great people and develop great relationships and friendships. And that's one of my goals with the clients that I get to work with is that we would end up friends as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Grand County really is even more than some of the other counties in Colorado. It's got some small towns that are kind of spread out, but less of a population, which is nice. Um, what's the future looking like for Grand County and maybe specifically Western Grand County, where you're at, maybe like Granby to Kremmling? Um, are there initiatives to take things in a certain direction, or are there any things out there where they're trying to stop something from happening, or give us a little status on your area right now?
Sure. So 2 points I'd like to hit on is the kind of the development that's going on. Some of it is, for the general public, and some of it is affordable housing, and then also short-term rentals. So I want to talk about those two things.
Yeah.
So here in Kremmling, we do have a new subdivision that's coming in. We haven't had new construction per se in a very long time. So that's pretty exciting to see. I think that's a total of about 49 dwellings, mostly single family, some multifamily as well. So they just broke ground a couple weeks ago. But
Okay.
that's for the general public. I don't believe that's going to have any kind of deed restrictions. Over in Granby, they're going crazy over there. They got all kinds of projects going on. Some of them that started before the Great Recession and went
Mm.
through some pretty major dips, and now have kind of like a phoenix rising from the ashes, are kind of having a resurgence. So two areas in particular, Grand Elk and Granby Ranch, are both just booming right now. And I
Yeah.
think what is driving people to those communities is they're tired of the I-70 drive. And so when
Mm.
you come to Grand County, you get to get off at Empire instead of going through the tunnel, sitting
Yeah.
through all that traffic.
Makes
So
a big difference.
a huge difference. And I think people are, like if you are buying a home in the mountains, you're trying to get away from it all. Like, so I think that Grand County has that appeal that they can come here and not feel like they just transplanted their life from the Front Range to the mountains and just changed the scenery. So where
Right.
he doesn't feel quite so crowded and overwhelming. And now with that comes some pretty serious growing pains. I know that infrastructure wise, there are definitely things that these communities are having to beef up, and anywhere from the water, the sewer, the broadband, the internet, there's
Mm.
all kinds of things that are happening behind the scenes and underground to make sure that we have services for these people. So on top of that is our lack of affordable housing, like so many mountain communities have.
Mm.
Granby is breaking ground right now on a pretty large project for affordable housing, which will be so fantastic, because none of this is going to work if we don't have people to work in the restaurants or at the ski area or in the grocery store. And it's very expensive to live here, and it's
Hmm.
almost impossible to afford something on some of the lower salaries that we have. So it's I'm glad to see that they're finally doing it. I think a lot of people say we should have been working on this 20 years ago, but we didn't really have the foresight and we didn't know where we were going. COVID changed so many things and just accelerated our real estate market just tremendously. And so, we've learned a lot through that, and we've had to make adjustments and pivots very, very quickly because of COVID.
Yeah. So, what type of services does the county have for payment assistance programs, first time buyer programs, things like that?
So, Grand Foundation, I believe it's them through the Grand County Housing Authority, has a down payment assistance grant. So you just pay it back at closing. So you get money towards your down payment.
Okay.
And unlike a second loan where you have to pay on it every month, this one is just due whenever you sell the property. So
Oh, wow. So it's almost like kind of free money for a while.
it kind of is. Yeah, exactly. So that's, and then Chaffa has a bunch of programs. So if you get connected with a good local lender, they're going to know about all of the programs that are available in the county. And your agent can recommend somebody that's local and knows what they're doing.
So if there are some first time home buyers out there, or people that just, don't have a ton of money for a house, it sounds like there are some programs for them, and they just need to do a little digging, and they can get some assistance.
Absolutely. And at least the western side of Grand County qualifies for USDA loans, which is a 0% down loan program. So
Okay.
and maybe even the east side qualifies as well, but I know for sure the west side does.
Okay. Okay. Um, what's going on with Granby Ranch ski area? Is that still going?
Oh, yeah,
Did it shut down? Didn't it shut down for a little while?
it did. And then, and I don't quote me on this because it's a long storied past, but the original, well, the lady who had owned it for a very, very long time, I think she did deed in lieu of foreclosure, gave the property back to the lien holder, and then an investor out of St. Louis purchased the real estate, the ski area, everything to do with Granby Ranch, and they have done a fantastic job getting it going again, getting infrastructure in there, fixing some of the things that needed to be fixed, enhancing a lot of the amenities at the ski area, at the clubhouse. They've done a really great job, and they are selling a bunch of homes there, and condos and townhomes, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's a lot going on up there. Um, we've been doing, my company's been doing inspections up there for years. Yeah, I've never skied Granby Ranch. Is it a good mountain? I'm
I
assuming
love
you've
it.
skied it.
I have. It's the only place I ski really because
Okay.
I'm a very fair weather skier. I don't like to ski when it's cold. I don't like to ski when it's crowded, and I'm terrified of somebody running over my kids. So I'm like,
Okay.
perfect. This is exactly where I need to be. It's a one base. I think what are they up to? Four lifts. Super mellow. You can still bring your own lunch there. Parking is a breeze. I absolutely love it. It's probably going to get crowded now after I say that.
I heard was if somebody was considering purchasing a vacation home in Grand County or one of the other counties, what would you say to them as to why Grand County might be a good choice?
Sure. So I think it's really important for folks to identify how they most likely will use the property. Is it going to be a seasonal thing for your family? Is it going to be mainly winter usage? Is it going to be summer usage? Is it going to be year round? Do you want to short term rent it? And then the other major factor in my mind is your drive time. So, especially when we consider the traffic that we're seeing these days. So if I were in those shoes trying to figure out whether or not I was wanting to buy a mountain property, those would be the things that I would really consider. And then I would kind of dive deeper into the seasonality of different areas and short-term rental restrictions. And then of course, drive time is usually pretty easy to figure out. And your local real estate agent should be able to help you very easily with all those things.
Yeah, great. So, kind of to wrap things up here, give me your elevator pitch, like 60 seconds as to, and I know we kind of just touched on it, but again, if you had just, 30 to 60 seconds, what would you say to somebody? Why should they come to Grand County?
I think, the natural beauty here is unparalleled. We're on the western side of Rocky Mountain National Park. We have great events that happen in this county, lots of different properties to choose from, both in price and size. Still have vacant land available if you want to build your own home, all within about 2 hours of Denver and kind of without the crowds of some of the other larger resort communities. So if you are into nature and seeing more wildlife than people, this might be a nice place for you to consider.
Yeah. And Grand, like you said, Grand County still has uh that naturalness to it. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's definitely not as built up, but yet it's growing
Yeah,
quite a bit.
it is growing, but we still, have so many different attractions. The three major reservoirs kind of right in the center of the county. And then, to either end, we have, got two over in the Kremmling area. So if, you're into water sports, we have the Colorado River runs right through Grand County. It's definitely a mecca for folks who love to do outdoor activities.
Yeah, yeah. Grand County is really a great place. Unspoiled. That's the word I was looking for before.
Yeah.
It's still quite a bit unspoiled, I would say.
No
So,
Walmart in Grand County.
know what?
No Walmart in Grand County.
Yeah, that is true, but that maybe that's a sign though that you've made it, right? If you
Yeah,
have a
that's right. Yeah.
Walmart.
Nothing against Walmart, but yeah, that just goes to show kind of where we're at in terms of our unspoiledness.
Yeah, no, Grand County is a great place. It's really beautiful. I encourage everybody to go check it out. How can people find you, Carrie, if they're interested?
My website, kwgrandcounty.com, is a great way to connect with me. You can grab my email and phone number from there. And then you can also find me on the socials, on Facebook and on Instagram.
Okay, great. We've worked with you for a long time, Carrie, and I know you are really a true expert and professional in what you do, and I know I appreciate our relationship and hopefully years to come for both of us. But I really appreciate you coming on today and giving us a little insight to Grand County. Um, any last parting words or anything you want to say to our viewers?
Yeah, I thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to be able to share all the reasons that I love Grand County and to be able to share what I do for a living. It is something that I am very passionate about.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Carrie. Well, thanks very much. And people know how to get a hold of you if they need to. And hope you have a great rest of 2024 and an awesome 2025.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
Rocky Mountain.